ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
And of course, this is Arlene.
And this is Grace.
And you're with us as usual every morning at 8 o'clock where we bring you news from Southeast Asia. You know what fruit that is loved by almost all of Southeast Asian, if not all?
Is it smelly? Or is it stinky?
Well, I don't know from a South Korean perspective, but from a Malaysian perspective, it smells good.
Well, okay, I love it, by the way.
Yeah, we are talking about the durian season. Apparently, Malaysian durians are selling at the lowest prices so far this year. This is also shared by Singapore vendors.
No wonder. That's why wherever I go, I smell durians, which I don't feel objected. Yes. So in line with the fasting season, Ramadan coupled with the peak season has brought good news for durian lovers, especially with the price of the fruit expected to continue to dropping in the coming weeks. Mm-hmm. So all those durian lovers out there, buy durians, but don't eat too much because it's very heaty. But then you can have it every day. Make sure you brush your teeth after that.
Well, the great thing about durian is, especially now, is so cheap that you should take the opportunity to enjoy as much as possible. On normal days, a durian can be extremely expensive.
True.
Just a couple of weeks ago when I was at the supermarket, just one box of durian, which is not that much, is about 50 ringgit. That was how expensive it is.
Right.
But when durian is so cheap, it can be just as low as 1 ringgit or 2 ringgit per kilo.
Wow, so that's really, really cheap.
In fact, the cheapest would be the kampung durian, and it's also among popular. It can go for 6 ringgit per kilo.
That's very, very cheap. And then this year, apparently China has imported a lot of durians from Malaysia in Johor and Pahang.
So I would advise ASEAN to create a durian diplomacy, maybe to China in this case. So I don't know. I would be interested to know. Later on, we will also talk about another diplomacy when we go to our economy and business news.
Yeah, but it's very interesting, Arlene, here because with the dropping price of durian, but then what's dropping more is also ringgit value. But then the funny part is people are buying durians more. So does it mean that it will improve? A lot of people are buying in ringgit.
Well, unfortunately, you need a huge scale of exports to boost up the ringgit currency right now because of the lower demand in China and the US and all that from Southeast Asian goods. It's one of the reason, maybe not the only reason, that the ringgit currency is not that high up. But who knows, we can use durian to boost up our exports. We need to export to all over the world from now on. Well, talking about exports, we always hear about the word Samsung because it's all over the world. But this time we are talking about another news, but kind of related to Samsung. Apparently, updated 3 Samsung scion apologizes for MERS spread at group hospital.
This is apologies for failing to stop the spread of this MERS syndrome at Seoul Hospital that run by a group foundation. So for now, around the 175 MERS cases that has happened in South Korea, and also to the Samsung Medical Center, and tarnishing the image of one of the country's most famous hospitals. And the South Korean's outbreak is the largest outside of Saudi Arabia, apparently, and the 27 patients have died so far. See, Samsung Medical Center is very famous in Korea, and it's very well known for.
There's a medical center that's called
Samsung. Yeah, so
wow.
It's not the technology that you're thinking about.
I almost thought it was the Samsung, company.
Well, it is a company, but then it's another branch under Samsung. And then Samsung Medical Center is very famous for having high facilities and a lot of medical services. And they were the one who was unable to stop the MERS infection, and it spread. Then it caused too much suffering and a concern to the public. In fact, the whole nation is on alarm at the moment. Everyone has to wear masks. Everyone has to wash their hands even after the handshakes. So they really need to keep themselves hygienic.
I think they shouldn't go for handshake anymore. They should follow the Japanese, just a bow. But it's really getting worse, even though it's not as worse as the bird flu and all that, but it's now spreading to countries like Malaysia and Thailand. So it's pretty worrying to know about this. Hopefully, they will find a cure for MERS soon and also contain the outbreak as soon as possible. On the other hand, talking about an outbreak.
Yep.
It's a political outbreak in Malaysia.
We have so many outbreaks.
This is regarding on the Mara scandal.
Right.
So we reported yesterday regarding a bad investment by Mara on a property in Melbourne,
Yes.
which was 20% hike up from the price that is supposed to be sold. And it's just like IKEA style cardboard box apartment. It's not like those kind of luxury grand houses. So for it to be sold in a very expensive and in a very dodgy way has prompted Melbourne and Australian authority to investigate about this, as well as the media in Australia, which I really salute a lot because they have done a great job of investigating this. So it goes back to Malaysia, and apparently it goes back to our Prime Minister, which is wow.
Well, he is the face of Malaysia, and of course he's very disappointed with certain media outlets for twisting the statement issued by this Mara, Chairman Tan Sri Anwar Musa, with regard to the property deal in Melbourne. And according to him, he said the decision was only made once the National Economic Council reached the consensus. Nevertheless, the investigation will be conducted by the authorities.
So what do you think of this? It's really weird, but is it true, the claim of the chairman of Mara, Tan Sri Anwar Musa, regarding on a property deal in Melbourne, that ultimately is the Prime Minister that needs to give the approval? It seems like someone is doing this on behalf of the Prime Minister to approve.
Perhaps, you never know, because Malaysian government has never been transparent on a certain controversial issues, and this is again regarding that involves money, and a huge amount of money here, and that's not within the Malaysia, it's outside of Malaysia, and we're talking about Melbourne in Australia, and then the image of Malaysia has been already been tarnished by a lot of issues here. And talking about the CEO of Mara and the Najib, I'm not so sure about the relationship between these two, but then you could be right there. Someone is doing something for Prime Minister and he's saying something otherwise.
It seems like our Prime Minister is working on autopilot. In fact, this is what he wrote in his Facebook. The decision was only made once the National Economic Council reached a consensus. Nevertheless, an investigation will be conducted by the authorities. Najib added in his post that legal action will be taken against those who cheated the NEC by supplying inaccurate or incomplete information. I'm also surprised by some of the Mara officials that mentioned in an earlier post in an earlier statement by Tan Sri Anwar Musa, saying that they think it's a good deal buying a house that is in millions of ringgit.
Exactly, and apparently the CEO of Mara, he said that they were not aware of all the claims that the value of the property had been inflated or the officials concerned had received any kickbacks. So these officials have been given 7 days to respond to the allegations in the writing.
Do you know how much money that actually Mara had overpaid to buy that stupid house? I would call it
stupid block.
It's 13.8 million ringgit.
That's a lot of money, Arlene. We're talking about.
You overpaid a house by 13.8 million, which if it's given to me, I can do so much things with 13.8 million. You can buy probably 13 houses in Malaysia, 13 bungalow houses in Malaysia.
That's a lot of money. And then apparently the asking price was 65.3 million ringgit. That's like more than triple or even quadruple.
And I wonder how much money Mara have actually. There's also another question I want to ask the audience.
You really want to know? You really want to see the figure?
On the other hand,
Right.
another Malaysian news that is also brewing really hot is regarding on PasMa, which is, I would say, the youth branch of PAS. They are thinking of forming a political party with new opposition coalition, which is DAP and PKR.
So is it the update news after that the dying of the one party and the youth wants to participate in the political party, and thus the new political party is to be formed, and then it's called the PasMa.
Yes,
And-
it seems like so, and it's an all-new opposition pack. PasMa is short for Persatuan Umat Sejahtera,
Right.
and the party will replace PAS as the Islamic-based party in the opposition coalition. This is according to its president, Datuk Parul Zrazi Zawawi. A pro-team committee to oversee the setting up of the new party will be appointed after Hari Raya.
Right. And also, this new party had agreed to work with the DAP as they share the similar aspirations for the future of the opposition coalition. So there needs to be a new coalition to replace the old one, of course. And then DAP's Lim Kit Siang made a similar call. So that is what PasMa is working towards. Well,
But what do you think of PasMa? Because apparently majority of the PasMa members are PAS supporters who are unhappy with the party's leadership, which has announced on June 13 that a new political party would be formed. And they're supposed to continue past struggle, but practice a more openness and allowing other races to join as members.
Well, allowing other members or races to join is it's showing that it wants to have a openness approach. But however, how open can that be? And then even after the youth joins to this party or new political party, how about the leadership of the party? How do they actually direct into the correct direction of the government or even the party? And when it comes to discussion, can they actually communicate with the old politicians in the party?
I am giving myself a huge question mark on this because I personally I'm not really sure or even confident of PasMa itself, but it seems like they want to create a new form of PAS, but hopefully their end goal is not another Islamic state.
I hope so
Hopefully
too.
hopefully they are more open towards members, meaning that perhaps non-Muslim can join in,
Right.
not as supporters but as full members. In a way, it's a great thing that members who are not happy with PAS want to reform PAS or want to create a new coalition so to carry out the vision for the opposition's coalition in this country. Anyway, we'll take one short break. When we return, we will bring more political and current affairs news in Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Welcome back. This is Grace.
And of course, you're still with us on ASEAN Daily. So, when we talk about MERS earlier, we only mentioned about South Korea, but we don't really mention that much about how ASEAN is going to tackle this. But apparently, according to Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha from Thailand, that he vows full cooperation with ASEAN over MERS.
And then this is after there was a report from the Thailand that there could be a one MERS case in the nation, but then it was reported it was a false news. And then Prayut Chan-o-cha, he came up with the full commitment also towards the spread of this deadly Middle East respiratory syndrome. And then speaking at the 6th summit of this Awawadi Chao Phraya Mongkong Economic Cooperation Strategy held in the Myanmar capital, Yeah, apparently he will assign the public health as well as the foreign ministries to work with the ASEAN countries to closely monitor this MERS case, and which is very important because you never know when these symptoms will spread in Southeast Asia. And already two news were reported, one from Malaysia and one from Thailand. Although these two news, after that they found that it was not the MERS cases.
That's definitely one area that is hopefully is will be able to address clearly in ASEAN, in a way that the World Health Organization actually has praised Thailand for its swift action in bringing the MERS situation in the country under control. In fact, when it comes to the meeting itself, it was attended by leaders from Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia and Myanmar, as well as health officials. He really wants to make sure that the MERS case can be contained in Southeast Asia, and I really think that he's doing a great job so far. On the other hand, talking about hospitals, unfortunately, in Myanmar, pregnant Rohingya woman was killed in MAUNGDAW General Hospital. This is really a shocking news.
Well, what happened was the victim is identified to be the Noor Hapa Said Anwar. She's only 20, from the Wachta village in southern MAUNGDAW, and she was admitted to this hospital for having heavy bleeding at the stage of her 8th-month pregnancy. And of course, she was killed in the hospital, and around 3:30 she was taken into the operation theater, and of course her family and the friends were there, but however the nurses and the hospital authorities came out of the theater only to hand over the dead body of the patients, said the Rohingya who witnessed who actually saw the whole incident in the hospital.
And they actually found a small steel scissors stuck inside her private part when her body was taken for a shower for the Islamic way of funeral. And this is really sad. How can a doctor become a killer? A doctor supposed to save life. They supposed to perform their duty as a doctor.
Yes, and then it is very painful, the whole process, but then apparently they also believe that the doctor and the nurses, they carry out the surgery without giving her anesthetic drugs, and later thus they heard the scream and out of pain in the theater of the hospital.
And apparently the doctor in charge of the hospital, Dr. Cho Myong Tien, is himself a Rakhine extremist. He's notorious for killing several Rohingya patients earlier. A Myanmar government has to do something about it. It cannot just keep quiet.
And then this is very unethical when it comes to doctors, all those policies they have to carry in the hospital, because even though it's just one Rohingya, it is still a human being, and the doctors are there to save the lives of the people, not just to kill the people. And purposely, if it was done purposely, and it is really true, it is very, very unethical, and it needs to be done by the government.
Yeah, seems like the government is serious at somehow doing ethnic genocide towards the Rohingya, and this is really, really sad that no one is doing anything about it. That's the reason why I will not sign any petition on some event that's supposed to save dog from being eaten in some festival in China. I would rather sign a petition to save more Rohingya from being killed or being a victim of genocide. Well, talking about victim, this is regarding on the 1MDB issue. Has been going on and on for so long. I think people are getting tired of it. But apparently, former PetroSaudi employee was arrested in Thailand for allegedly leaking 1MDB information.
And this is really news. Yeah. So his name is Xavier Justo. He is a former IT executive at the company. He was arrested at his home in Thailand and was charged with attempted blackmail and extortion against his former employer. And it's regarding the 1MDB, the controversial issues, one of the issues in Malaysia.
And in fact, that is what they said, that they are relieved that Mr. Jusso will now face justice through the court. They have been the victim of a regrettable crime that has unfortunately been politicized in Malaysia. And they are also happy to finally set the record straight, that they apologize to the Malaysian people for the harm that one of their unscrupulous ex-employees have caused to them. But I don't know, is he really on the wrong, or he is perhaps a whistleblower? And I think whistleblowers should be protected.
You never know, because it's regarding the government's controversial issue. So perhaps when all this police and the government came into the scene, he could be arrested, and then it is something that he was attempt to do the blackmail and also other kinds of acts such as extortion against his former employer.
So anyway, we'll take another one short break. When we return, we will talk more about economy and business side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Grace.
And of course, you are still with us on ASEAN Daily. This time we want to bring you more on the economic side of ASEAN. Well, it's not really ASEAN, but more towards Japan this time. Remember earlier on, I told you about a different kind of diplomacy. We can have durian diplomacy. But in Japan, they are heading towards toilet diplomacy.
Interesting. Oh, what kind of diplomacy can toilet have?
Well, it makes you do your business.
That's true. So apparently, Japan is ready to lift the lid on what could be its most effective global marketing. And this is very interesting because I'm also looking at the toilet seats in Japan, and it's very well known in Japan that all those toilets, in the public toilets or any toilets that you will see in Japan, is very, very clean. And then they even have this system when you do the big business, you can press the button to play the sound, so the next door people wouldn't hear what you're doing, but they only hear the music from next door. So so a lot of etiquettes, I will say, that Japanese do care when it comes to toilet. So I'm not so surprised that they have the toilet diplomacy here, calling the intelligent toilet.
I don't know what to say. It's full of surprises, always weird surprises in Japan. And apparently clean toilets equipped with various features will be a plus for tourism.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, what they are doing is to attract more tourists to come to Japan. And not a bad move. Huh. Is Korea doing the same thing too?
Well, we have the same system except the music. But then it is also targeting the ahead of the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games. And also the nearly every household in Japan and most public restrooms are equipped with the seat that I just mentioned before. And when it comes to summer or in the winter, the toilet seats are very, very warm, especially winter. So you don't feel like the sudden cold when you sit down on the toilet bowl during winter. So people there really, really do care about the citizens, and then do take care of their own people there.
Somehow, the rich and famous in Hollywood has been so attracted to Japanese toilet, including Madonna and Will Smith, who have both sung their praises, and the seats are also among the most popular items targeted by Chinese tourists, ranking alongside high-spec rice cooker and cosmetics. So there you go. I want to get one too for Durian ASEAN.
Oh, we go to Japan first, and we take the example from how they equipped all those toilet stuff.
And talking about toilet diplomacy, we move on to another form of partnership. Although it doesn't really involve toilet, but it's definitely a partnership that is worth it is worth looking at. This is EU strategic partnership with ASEAN. So EU foreign ministers have agreed that the Union and ASEAN needs to work together to move the relation to a strategic level. And in a statement following the discussion in Luxembourg, the EU Foreign Affairs Council retaliated that the move to an ASEAN-EU strategic partnership will be matched by EU's presence at the region's strategic table, including at summits, through the EU's involvement in the East Asia Summit process.
In fact, the EU has been showing their interest and also support towards the ASEAN for a long time, and then that they are the one of the top supporters when it comes to having the partnership with ASEAN, and financially also morally as well, because EU can be the example when it comes for ASEAN to follow the steps as well, and when it comes to connectivity or technology, even the economic growth, a lot of things that we can learn from EU. So it is actually very a bright news for ASEAN to have this strategic partnership with EU.
Yes, and for those countries that are a bit maybe not comfortable with World Bank or IMF or AIIB, there's always another bank. It's called the European Investment Bank. Right. This is part of the EU financial support and its cooperation program, as well as ASEAN investment facilities and other bilateral assistance. So there you go. EU definitely want to put their mark in ASEAN. On the other hand, talking about China and drugs. China say economic losses from drug abuse hit 81 billion US dollar a year.
That's a lot of money again. And then they have intensified this crackdown on drugs as a rise of the new urban class with a greater disposable income has fueled a surge in the number of the drug addicts as well. And then they have been fighting for this drug abuse, and the government arrested a lot of celebrities as well, including the son of Hong Kong Kung Fu movie star Jackie Chan, which J.C. Chan, it was reported a long time ago, sometime perhaps last year or early this year, that he was addicted to drug abuse as well as addiction, that he was serving the 6-month jail sentence on those drug charges. And China has more than 14 million drug users, and it is quite have reached a certain level when it comes to drug abuse and usage. And the direct economic losses caused by drug use in the entire country have hit around 500 billion yuan annually.
This is really crazy. As you know, when it comes to drug, the only laws that Southeast Asia know, of course, is death penalty. Majority of the countries in Southeast Asia are still applying death penalty, but it's not because they are paranoid, but this is based on real facts that Southeast Asia does have a golden triangle. Is one of the major overseas drug sources. Another one will be the South Asia Golden Crescent, which include Afghanistan, Pakistan. And this is really crazy because they supply probably 90% of the drugs all over the world, and and trafficking of drugs is definitely a lucrative business. To fight the situation, China will be strengthening law enforcement cooperation with Afghanistan, Pakistan, Myanmar, and other countries. But I'm not sure how well it would be, because even countries within those boundaries, their law enforcement are very lax.
And at the same time, it's very interesting to know that the names are taken after golden, and the golden triangle, golden crescent, and those are the names that we can look out for. And one of the two major drugs that we are talking about is heroin and also methamphetamine, which is very famous drugs in Southeast Asia. And then those drugs are actually grown in certain regions in Southeast Asia. Perhaps that's why people are more addicted to buy and also purchase the drugs, and they are selling it at quite cheap prices.
Wait, you bought before?
No, because I've read a few articles regarding this drug addiction.
Are you sure it's not Durian article? Just kidding.
Yeah, so, this is quite pretty serious, and it has already reached a limit, I guess, because of we are talking about a huge figure when it comes to money.
So anyway, we'll take another short break. When we return, we will move on to the socio-cultural side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Welcome back. This is Grace.
And of course, you're still with us. So, talking about social-cultural in Southeast Asia, Thailand is expecting record tourist arrival this year thanks to China.
Well, there are a lot of Chinese tourists coming to Thailand for sure, and then this is no surprise. But when it comes to the tourist etiquette in the certain countries, right? Chinese tourists are very well known for having very bad manners.
I totally agree with that. But at the same time, they are the reason why tourism in Southeast Asia is picking up. A lot of the new tourists from Southeast Asia are from China instead of from Australia or Europe or US. So in a way, they have to cater to the Chinese tourists, but they also have to perhaps educate the Chinese tourists.
Yes, that's also true. And apparently, the expected number could be 7.45 million this year, and that's up nearly 60% from 2014, and that's a lot of increase that we're talking about. And Thailand is considered the top destination for Chinese travelers, and also perhaps there will see more growth in Chinese market.
And because of that, remember we talked earlier about the etiquette manuals. Thai government actually will be issuing it in Chinese language etiquette manuals to respond to the growing complaints over the Chinese tourist behavior. Glad that this is happening because Thailand is a sacred place.
That's true, and perhaps this is the reason why the PM Prayut is really concerned about the spreading of MERS case, because there are lots of Chinese tourists flooding in to Thailand to visit and for tourist purposes.
Talking about another tourist, which is Queen Elizabeth II, she will begin Germany state visit and will also see former Nazi concentration camp.
Yes, and she actually visited on just a couple of days ago, and then that was her first visit in a lot of regions in Germany, and she's still very glamorous, and also
she's
looks very
89. Can
gorgeous.
you imagine that?
Yes. So they have received this welcome as they left, and also this German military honor guard lined their route to the car. So she's very well escorted, and then she's there to visit, like you mentioned, the Nazi concentration camp in Germany.
And what we are seeing right now, that she will also be meeting German Chancellor Angela Merkel in Berlin. After a boat trip along the River Spree, they will also be meeting the President Joachim Gauch. So the Queen is definitely enjoying her Europe trip, and also learning about what is happening in Germany, which was very, very sad, at the time in World War II. On the other hand, besides the Queen, we also have another weird news we want to end up with. Do you know there's this one bra company that released an ad that caused everyone to give a weird face, like, and what is this?
This bra company is very famous worldwide, and it happened all the way in Sri Lanka, and it is regarding the copyright when it comes to print newspaper, that the message was sent really, really wrong and inappropriate, that it was said that for the ladies who pamper their dads, and it was from the bra company, and then a lot of people were really outraged after reading this the advertisement, because it was not really hard to find or hard to notice this sentence. It was just spot on, and everybody started taking pictures and then uploading on their social media.
It's crazy because the sentence for the ad itself is called "For the ladies who pamper their dads." That sounds very wrong, right?
It is wrong.
It sounds like an incest ad.
It is very wrong unless they're looking for sugar daddy. So a lot of people were outraged, and the ad seems to be very, very wrong. So here the media really, really needs to double check and quadruple check on the wording, and also when it comes to copyright.
That's true. Anyway, that's all for us from us today, and of course you can always catch up with us again tomorrow, as well as you can always go to our social media site. You can actually listen live on Facebook, where we have actually created a new section on our Facebook page.
Right.
Yes.
Something that we didn't know about. But then listeners can definitely go to the Facebook news section to check out for the live streaming listenership part. As well as when you're on the go, don't forget to download TuneIn app to listen us at Durian ASEAN.